ese hombre holding up the bottle. Look a little closer, cigar and Moscato. An actor in improv coming from Chicago.
It's an honor to be on with you. Thanks for the invite. Thanks for the support, and thanks for the recognition. We both started in this business a long time ago. We don't have to say how long ago, but we're still here, and we're doing, things are happening, and I think I'm going to be one of those 25-year overnight successes pretty soon.
You took the words out of my mouth. We're overnight successes, and only took us 25 years. Salvation, my improv group from Chicago that I started 24 years ago, is coming up on 25 years. So this is about that same road, So I'm glad that we've hung in there, because you have such a unique voice, such a great voice. You and your partner, your wife, Christina, just are a brilliant team. And I think that you guys are an inspiration. And I'd like to, eventually get to talk a little bit about that, because you guys make such a wonderful team. And it shows in your work and all that. So we're very proud of you, is I think what I'm trying to say.
Thank you. Well, for those who don't know me, I'm a director, writer, director, producer, and we have a film right now on HBO Max. This one here, there's a poster for it. It's called In Other Words. I just completed another film I did two films, one in 2020, one in 2021. And the one we did in 2020 just got picked up by Samuel Goldwyn Films. And that's going to be for possible theatrical release, Paul. Theatrical.
Oh, Patrick. I'm so happy for you and sad for me, because I think I understand that. But I'm so happy for you, because, that's a big deal, right? To just go, to have a theatrical release, especially in this time right now.
It's a huge deal. First of all, the only films that are getting theatrical release are Marvel films, with massive budgets, and with people not going to the theaters as much. Really, those tent poles are the draw. Our film is a little indie with a bunch of Latino main characters and really diverse cast. But really no major stars to speak of. So for something like that kind of film to get a theatrical release is really, really awesome. We're just incredibly proud and psyched that Samuel Goldwyn thinks that this is something that the world should see. We'll definitely be promoting when that happens. That'll be in the fall of this year. But until then, we'll be updating people on the progress.
And please, I'd either love to have you come back, and maybe we can do this, more often than just once. But either way, I'd love to help support in any way that I can, whether it's just through retweeting or putting it out there on social media. But any way that I can be of service, I would love to, because it's a project. Everyone, and rightly so, I think, complains like, oh, there aren't any Latino projects out there. No one's giving us a chance. So when you have a chance, you jump on it, and then people realize what's been missing. If like you said, is it Metro? You said Metro Goldwyn Mayer? Is that who?
It's just Goldwyn. It's the Goldwyn family made their own shingle. It's called Samuel Goldwyn Films, and they've been doing really good, premium work. If you look up their slate, they have some top quality award-winning stuff. They have a pretty discerning eye when it comes to acquisition. So we're really proud to be part of their lineup.
Wonderful. When is it slated for release then? Do you have a date, or do you have?
No, they're just completing the deal. So they're saying in the fall. It was just announced in the trades that. So really, I read it in the trades. I knew it was happening, but I didn't know the details. So I'm finding out, by the news articles as well. But they say in the fall, so we'll see specifically and have more info.
Wonderful. Well, bottom line, how much did you make on this? No, I'm kidding. Congratulations. Now, but this isn't your first. This is not your first rodeo. What's been your journey like? Again, we've known each other now since I moved to LA in 2000. That's when I started, that's when I came from Chicago.
Barrio Speedwagon. You had a sketch comedy show.
What did you guys think of us when we came out? Because, for us, it was a little bit of culture shock because like we weren't familiar even with like the word pocho or maybe even Chicano. Then I think I coined the term Chicano, a Chicano.
Yeah. Or so Chicano.
We weren't very much in touch with what was going on.
I don't know. I found you guys to be right in the vein of what we were up to, which is kind of creating, comedy, broad comedy, but with a little bit of the Latin flavor, and, I joined up with Esteban Zul and Lalo Alcaraz early on because, I actually heard about them when I was in New York going to school. And I heard that these guys, there's a couple of Mexican Americans out in LA doing this comedy. And we were running in the same circles and we ended up collaborating on stuff. They hired me to develop a script with them. And I edited one of their short films that was in the Fox Search Lab. And we became collaborators. And then you guys came out from Chicago. And, I was at that time just really happy to see more and more creators, people who are dedicated to like telling our stories, having a unique voice, not taking themselves too seriously. There was a certain style that you guys embodied that I think was jived with what we were doing. At that time, I literally thought we were all going to be overnight successes. Didn't you?
100%. Because, we came out with a show. We came out with Touched by an Anglo. And we're like, well, somebody's going to see this and see the brilliance in it. And looking back, I mean, I thought it was, because we'd already created it and crafted it in Chicago. So we knew it was funny. We knew it worked. But we got the same kind of runaround, which was, you take it to ABC or NBC or CBS, and they're like, have you tried Univision or Telemundo? And we take it to Telemundo and Univision, and then they are like, oh God, like, no, take it to, you guys aren't Latinos, you guys aren't Mexican, you got to take it to ABC, CBS. So we were kind of caught like in this middle. I landed a Del Taco commercial campaign like 6 months in. It's like, this is easy. What are people complaining about? And then, but meeting you guys, and I don't know if the project that you worked with Lalo and Esteban was Taco Truck the movie, but we were here like a week, and we get brought in to do part of this table read for Gregory Nava, I think, right? And we met Constance Marie, and gosh, I forget what other these Latino actors, celebrities were like. Oh my God, we're in the same room as these guys. The guy that had been on Three's Company, the guy that wiped his feet. I forget what his name was. Felipe. I
don't know his real name, but that was his name.
That was his character. Yeah. And so I remember Joe Nunez and I were like, oh my God, that's that guy. Like, we were overwhelmed. And you're right. We thought, overnight success. Like, you kidding me? Yeah. This is easier. Yeah. This is easy. What are people complaining about?
Yeah. You guys kind of showed up. You're like, we're here. You may love me now.
Where's our show?
Yeah. Where's my show? And, I had done this thing where I went to school back east in New York. I went to Columbia University, and I was kind of like, okay, what am I really want to do this film thing. I really want to pursue this. I'm like, okay, I'm going to give it a couple years. And I was looking at the demographics of like Latinos in the United States. And it's just like, we're this huge demographic wave, like a mountain just growing. I was like, this is inevitable. This is going to be like shooting ducks in a barrel. It's going to be so easy. We have a huge audience. We're only growing. It's the future. Everyone's going to want to cater to this voice that hasn't really been established yet. And 20 years later, that hasn't happened yet. And it's really like I've had to question my premise, like what it is I'm doing in this industry, my voice, a lot of things. Like, it makes you really think, like, why, if we are the largest minority in the US, don't we have the kind of success that African Americans have in comedy, in movies, in popular culture, And you could say like, yes, there is successes. Of course, we have George Lopez's sells out stadiums and Fluffy, and so there has been growth in the comedy arena. There has been some growth in TV and films, but still, like all the statistics say that we are like 2% of the actors. It's just a tiny, tiny sliver of the, and not representing our numbers in the population at all. So anyway, all that stuff has been shocking to me that it's taken this long for things to happen. It hasn't stopped me. Like, I'm still writing with a Latino American voice, still making inclusive films. Still, like, for me, we don't make stories about narcos, maids, gardeners, or drug dealers, any of that stuff. I don't know any myself. Narcos never had any impact on people like you. I know lawyers, I know doctors, I know my neighbors who are hardworking folks who own their houses. So that's what we write. We write regular people who happen to be Latino, and they're interacting in a diverse world. They're not interacting in only a Latino world. So that's the way life is for me, and that's what we try to reflect in our films, and just have universal stories where we could show that we are just like everybody else. We have certain quirks, certain likes. We love tacos.
Everybody loves tacos. Come on.
Yeah, But anyway, those are the stories we're trying to tell. But yeah, I've been shocked that at the lack of this Latino wave, the fact that it never materialized.
No, and trust me, we were there in the 1900s, the late 1900s, but where every year was, this is the year of the Latino. This is the year there's a Latin explosion. So much so that we wrote, one of the titles of one of our shows, I think, was "There's a Latin explosion in my pants," because we were kind of like just a little needling, because it's never happened. But first it was like J-Lo, then Ricky Martin, then Shakira, and every year was like, this is a year, and that's exactly what you said. And I think it's and I don't know. Are people, is the powers that be? I think they're more racist than they are money hungry. I think. I mean, it's because people go like, it's a money thing. It's a money thing. But if it was a money thing, then they would see how much they're leaving on the table by not including us. So I don't think it's a money thing. I think it's almost, I hate to think that everyone is so ignorant, but then again, if you work in Hollywood and your maid is Latino, and you watch the news and you see all these bad things happening, and whether people invading the country or whatever, maybe then that's the only way they think. Or it's just too easy to keep thinking that way. So I don't know, but even the Asians, dare I say, got ahead of us. Thank you, Dr. Ken, type of a thing. But I think that they were more vocal about it, believe it or not. Where they would, if you don't support this project, then we're voting with our wallets. And I think that we, especially like Mexican Americans or Chicanos, we don't do that. Maybe are we too embarrassed? Is it?
I don't know. I'm not sure. Like, now that I've been making movies for a while and I see the inner workings of things, and I'm trying to, like, my career is starting to get to the next level, I'm at a point now where, we have a script that we're trying to package, and it has a Latina lead, and we wrote it this way. And when they greenlight a film, they're like, okay, what stars can we put in it, right? So they're like, okay, what stars will greenlight a film? And what they're telling me is, like, basically the stars that'll greenlight a film is somebody that your grandma knows, like the biggest stars in the world, like Tom Cruise, and you name it, like anyone that your aunt would know. That's the greenlightable stars. Now, even if you say someone like Edward James Olmos, he is not a worldwide household name. He cannot greenlight a film, and so we're at this place of it is definitely an element of racism built into the system, because the big bankable stars are all white,
Sure.
And so you got to put one of them in your film in order to get the film greenlit. And so but it's the catch-22 that unless we put people who could be stars, the future stars, and greenlight it. We have to put them in films to make them stars, but they can't be in the film unless they're a star. And that's the catch-22 we're finding ourselves in, right?
That's exactly it. How do you expect us to become stars if you don't even let us, do? Or if there is a great Latino role, then you put a white person in it, and it's like, well, I mean, Ben Affleck can play Latino in Argo. Of course, he can play Latino. Okay, but is the opposite true? Can a Latino play a white person? No. Right. So if they look like us, then I think we should be able to look like them, or no,
I think that the answer to that, and what I've been doing with my career, is really just working outside the system altogether. Like who greenlit this film here was an independent company run by a Latino guy who wanted to tell this story. And so we told this story. We got Chris Kattan in it. We got Edy Ganem, who we worked with in Lola's Love Shack, my first film. And, we went out and found some actors that we just did auditions. And we made a little film that, spec in the sense, they call it spec when you just kind of write something that nobody asked for. It's not commissioned. We didn't put any bankable stars in it per se, other than maybe Chris Kattan. And it was good enough that HBO picked it up. There are thousands and thousands of independent films that get made each year. And, the fact that HBO picked up ours, we're incredibly pleased, which shows that, we got the writing chops, the directing chops, the actors were good. Everybody did a really great job in it. But, that the only way to greenlight something is for us to greenlight ourselves, right? And so the moment we want to start attaching, like doing $2, $3, $4, $5 million projects and above, $10 million projects, then we're back to the old system where we need a star in it, a bankable star, a known, recognizable star. And then we were cut out of our own, like I literally have a script that they're trying to change the ethnicities of my characters because there's no big Latino stars capable of greenlighting this thing. And I'm sure I'm not the only one. When you get to the level where people really like your work and want to put 10 million, they're going, yeah, we want to do that. But unfortunately, the cast you want doesn't support that, and so I don't know. I'm watching The Offer on Paramount Plus, I think right now, the story of making The Godfather. And there was some of that stuff going on. And like Francis Coppola had to really fight hard to get Al Pacino in the film, for instance. And they didn't like it because he was a short, dark Italian. And they're like, he's not a leading character. Nobody cares about that. He's never going to make it. And they, that was a big budget film. They fought really hard to get him in. But I think that's what it takes. It's like, we got to go up there and we got to fight to include people that we believe in as the next generation of stars and make sure that they get the opportunity to become stars,
That's it. Well, and you're right. I mean, it's exactly right. It's this catch-22 where, okay, you want stars, but how, at least then allow us to become stars. Maybe not this generation, but the next generation. So, I mean, it's baby steps. It's baby steps, I think, but it's been going on since I've been in the industry, 20 some years, 25 years, just like you had mentioned. Now, did you grow up in LA and then you ended up in New York for film school? Yeah. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in LA. I grew up in a town called Hacienda Heights, out by Whittier, kind of Roland Heights. I used to, we grew up in a diverse community, like a bedroom community. My dad worked at Rockwell Aerospace. It was back during the Cold War when one father's income could support the whole family and buy a nice suburban house, 2 cars, Mm-hmm. And, but yeah, my next door neighbors were Korean. My other next door neighbors were Black, white, Mexican. Everyone was we'd play on the street together. So I grew up in a nice, diverse community here in Southern California. And then I really, it was suburbia. And I was kind of a nerd, not a nerd, but I was very bookish, very, very, I always wanted to travel. And I wanted to get the hell out of my suburban neighborhood. Like I couldn't wait to get out of there, So I applied to a bunch of East Coast schools, and I applied to Berkeley and whatever, and I ended up getting into Columbia in New York City, and of course I took it. That was as far as I can get from my neighborhood, And so I was 18 years old, Mexican American kid, moved by myself to New York. No one went to drop me off. My parents just took me to the airport. I jumped on a plane and bye-bye. I saw all kinds of other parents dropping their kids off, help them decorate their dorm room. And I'm just I'm here solo, I'm a Chicano kid from LA. But, I took to New York like a duck to water, honestly. I loved it. And back then, probably still today, they didn't really card at the bars. So, we were 18 years old and we'd be going to all the bars and going down to the Village, and, we were just having a blast.
Where did you live? Where does one live when they go to school in a city like that? I mean, is there a campus? Is there
it's a campus.
Dorm?
I think it's kind of it's a dorm. So most everyone lives on campus because unless you live in New Jersey and commute home, it's pretty much everybody lives on campus. So yeah, up in 116th Street and Broadway is the Columbia campus, and it's in a neighborhood they call Morningside Heights. I guess the analogous here in LA would be like USC, where it's kind of it's in Harlem,
Right.
But it's its own kind of university campus, and the university owns all the buildings there in Morningside Heights. And it was beautiful, really nice up there. It's right near Riverside Drive, so you have the Hudson River there. A lot of great restaurants, but it's pretty far. If you get a train from 116th Street and Broadway and you want to go to the Village, it'll take you 45 minutes to get there, maybe an hour, depending on rush hour. So it's actually not close to the hustle and bustle of it's way uptown,
But it was
quiet.
Are there more like office buildings, skyscrapers, or is that then become more suburban? I mean,
it's not. It's like New York suburban in the sense that it's maybe you got the buildings there are 13 stories high.
Okay.
They're not 100 stories high. There's 20-story buildings and stuff, and there's a lot of residential apartment buildings, mostly residential apartment buildings.
Got it. And I think I've been in that area. Now, is that close to Spanish Harlem at all?
Yes, it's also close to Spanish Harlem. Yeah.
Because I've got some great stories about Horatio, when he got hired by Saturday Night Live back in the late 97, 98, he was kind enough to invite me to come out there. So I spent a couple of weeks in New York. And I was maybe the only Mexican American there, because there were no Mexican restaurants. I remember that somebody was like, Mexican restaurants? They're like, no. He goes, there's a Carlos Murphy's. But it was an Irish Mexican bar or something. But that first night I was there was quite an adventure. I met this Dominican guy. He goes, I'm Dominican, like Sammy Sosa, because I think I was wearing my Cubs hat. And then he took me up to Spanish Harlem to go to a restaurant to get this Dominican experience or whatever, where promptly somebody was murdered outside of this restaurant. So I'm going to put together this story.
While you were there?
Yeah. So because all of a sudden everyone starts getting up from the restaurant, and he goes, let's go. I'm like, I go, why? I go, we got to pay. He goes, no, we're going. So everybody in the restaurant was there was this energy. So apparently the waitress's boyfriend, the girl had been waiting on us, her boyfriend got murdered right outside the restaurant, right on the corner. And this guy was he was pissed. He was like, I bring you up here, I want to show you my city. I want to show you how great it is. And he goes, and people have to fuck it up. This guy gets murdered. So he put me in a gypsy cab, because I was like, well, I'm going to head back to downtown or, wherever I was staying. And he was like, no, I'll get you a taxi. He goes, and he told the guy, he goes, don't drop him off anywhere else. You take him where he paid. He gave him $20. He goes, don't charge him anymore. He was taking care of me, this guy. And I lost his number. It always pained me that I could never find it. But then, of course, I tell the cab driver, I'm like, oh, just drop me off here, because it was a few blocks from where I was staying. I knew where he goes, and he was kind of like, and I was like, I'll be fine. But because there was a bar I wanted to go to. And I think I ended up at McManus's. It was this whole adventure. I think I met Linda Tripp's son on that same night. It was this world. And I was like, wow, New York is crazy. New York is insane. And I'll have to tell you the whole story. I'll have to try and remember it. But I remember being up at like 119th for some reason, rings a bell is where I was. But yeah, I mean, it was quite the adventure. And I had a wonderful 2 weeks. But I guess my point was that there were no Mexican Americans there. So what year were you there, if you don't mind giving away
I
your
was
age?
there. I graduated high school in 1990, and I went to New York in 1990, the fall. And so back then, there was no Mexicans. In fact, there were, but they were all working in the back of kitchens. And I told people I was Mexican, and they go, "No, you're not Mexican," because they thought all Mexicans looked like Oaxacans. You know what I mean? Yeah. Sure. They're like, "You're not Mexican," and And I got a lot of people thought it was Puerto Rican, Italian, or Jewish. That's kind of what I got called out back then. And I walked into a bodega once, and I was really hungry for Mexican food, and I asked if they had tortillas. The guy didn't even know what a tortilla was. To them, tortillas were the Spanish omelet.
Of course.
This is in New York City. Now you go to New York City, burrito shops, taco shop. There was, dude. Let me just say this: is like I got hired to direct a film in New York last summer, and it was like the best. Like for me, psychically and spiritually, it was like full circle. Like I left New York wanting to become a director, and now I'm back directing a movie in the West Village. And it was just a huge freaking, like, I love New York. I'm crazy in love with New York. But
I don't know.
Now there was a taco truck right outside the film set. Like literally I walk off the set, there's a taco truck. I could get tacos de asada, tacos de carnitas, like everything is there. So everything's changed. Like there's a lot of Mexican Americans there now, a lot of them. In fact, let me tell you another story. Like I was just there this summer, and we went to one of the oldest bars that we shot in, an old bar called the Little Branch. It's in the West Village, and it used to be a speakeasy. It has a no sign. You walk downstairs, and then you're in this little tiny bar. All of it's downstairs, right? And so very, very cool spot. We go in there. I meet the owner and his son. They're from Mexico City. Okay. They own this old vintage bar in New York. And dude, wouldn't you know it, we freaking hit it off. We were filming, and we're wrapping up, and we weren't quite done, and they were supposed to open. And I was like, dude, we're not quite done. Do you think I could get one more, a couple more minutes? He goes, dude, take all the time you want. Take all the time. It's kind of the mi casa es su casa vibe. Like from one Mexican, I got the good treatment. Let me just say that. I got the royal treatment there. And it was just so cool to see how the city had changed, from when I was there back in the 90s.
That's amazing. What, like you said, a full circle. And I don't know if I'm using the right word, but would that be cathartic, to start out leaving the city and then coming back and maybe completing this mission?
Yeah, there was something really fulfilling about it. I mean, maybe there was a catharsis. There was something deeply, deeply satisfying about it. And I actually got to see some of my old college buddies. We went out. We went out at night and stuff, and just loved it, man. Love that city.
I would love to spend some time with you in New York because, again, my experience was twice, both for a couple of weeks because just like vacationing or going on holiday somewhere, if I go somewhere, if I spend the time, and my ex-wife hated me for the fact that we would, well, for other reasons, but that if I went, like when we went to Cuba, we planned it for a month. She's like, this is too long. I'm like, if we're going to go somewhere, let's just stay. Paris, I think we did for like 3 weeks or a month. And then Cuba, I was like, well, we can cut it early. She's like, well, no, we're here already. And then, kind of grew on her. But it's same with New York, and at the time I still had my ice cream shop. So it was kind of, difficult to be gone. But once I got there, I think I was just going to go for the weekend, see Horatio do his first show. Cameron Diaz was the host. Smashing Pumpkins were the musical guest. And it was a great show. It was a great first show for him. And then I was like, my friend's like, you should just stay in New York. And I'm like, I can't stay. I've got an ice cream shop I got to get back to. He's like, well, you're welcome to stay here as long as you want. So he's passed away since. Ramsey Moore, who was a great comedian, very funny, really big guy. Yeah. Really, heavy. But a stand-up comedian, funny guy. And so I stayed on his couch for like a couple weeks. We hooked up with a band they had a song called, they were the Sneaker Pimps. They had this great song called Spin, Spin, Sugar, Spin, Spin, Sugar. And then I would keep running into them because I ran into LA and he goes, did your friend? I go, yeah, he stole a bottle of Jack from you guys. I go, and I'm really sorry. Because this other guy that I was with, it's Harry, stole a bottle of their booze. I knew about it. So every few years I'd run into them. But I would love to spend time with you in New York because I think you could really, we could really reminisce from New York back.
Oh, man. That's it. Yeah, the door's open for me there, man. I mean, just things happen. It's always awesome. There was this one time, man. This was way back. This is kind of old, but you mentioned the Smashing Pumpkins. We went to a concert on Roosevelt Island. I think it was Lollapalooza, right? And my friend, we had already graduated. So this is like 95, 96. And my friend had she had gotten a job with the Park Service, with the city. And so she's like, hey, you want to come with me? We can get on the Park Service boat, and they'll drive us to the island. Instead of taking a cab, let's take the park boat. Hell yeah! So we take a cab to the launching point of the boat, cross the river, and pull in, and then we go into the concert. Of course, we dropped mushrooms or acid or whatever. Had an awesome time. Smashing Pumpkins came out, and then we're heading back to the boat. We get on the boat, and the captain says, he goes, hey, we're not leaving quite yet. You guys are going to have to wait. And we're like, why? They're like, we got to wait for one of the bands. And we're like, oh, which band? They're like, the Smashing Pumpkins. So we're like, okay, okay, yeah, that's cool. Sure. Yeah, sure. So literally we're waiting for the Smashing Pumpkins, and they get on, and Courtney Love gets on with them. We didn't, she was with them or traveling with them or something. So we're on the boat with Courtney Love and the Smashing Pumpkins right after their concert. And it was just kind of a surreal, evening.
That is a great story. Oh my God.
Wow.
What year would this have been?
96, I think. Something like that.
It was, 97, 98 is when I was there. So it's crazy to think that our paths could have possibly crossed, but you were probably already gone by 98. Were you?
Yeah, I was back in LA by then. Yeah. I tried to stay out there for a couple of years. In fact, when I applied to film school, because I got an anthropology degree at Columbia.
I'm sorry, what?
And anthropology.
I know what it is, but what are you going to do with an anthro degree?
Well, to me, when you're at a place like Columbia, I would just take, there was literally a book that had who the best professors were and what their class was. And I would just take the classes of the best professors. I almost didn't care what they were teaching, because great professors are infectious with their excitement. And you learn way better learning from someone who's passionate about what they're teaching. And so Columbia's famous for anthropology. Plus, I love world history. But the honest, I was kind of taking a bunch of classes. Then I was looking at so I was taking a lot of history, some anthropology. I was taking astronomy, poetry, sculpture. I was taking all kinds of different classes, just broad. I knew I wanted to get into film. And to me, this was my last chance to learn everything before I concentrated on one subject. So I just took a broad thing. And then when I was looking at what I should major in, I had a few more. I could either major in history or anthropology, because those are the classes I had the most credits in. And to study, and here's the shitty part, the messed up part, is that in order to study my ancestors, your ancestors, the Aztecs, the Mayans, in order to study our own history, I had to major in anthropology. Our history isn't called history. It's called anthropology, right? At least in the East Coast institutions, right? History is world history, Western history, Asian history, anywhere with a written tradition. They burned all the Mayan books, and they destroyed the wisdom of the native civilizations. And so we're now relegated to anthropology. So to me, that's why I chose it. I majored in Mayan culture, and so I did my thesis in post-classic Mayan archaeology of the Yucatan.
And you said you're not a nerd, right?
Totally a nerd, man. I mean,
yeah, bookish. He said that's wonderful, Patrick. I don't think it's creeping up. So I'm sure we chatted about it in some drunken night many years ago. But that's wonderful. That's beautiful. That's such a great backstory. Yeah. And then to go to New York, because I think most Latinos, Mexican Americans, I should say, or if you're Mexican, you're going to stay in LA. You're going to stay close to your parents. I myself went away, to school 3.5 hours from home, because then on the weekends I could bring the laundry back, drop it off. Hi, Ma. I'll see you on Sunday when we drive back. Yeah. Okay, mijo. Okay, it'll all be nice and folded and ready for you. So
must be nice. My parents, it's particular to that time and place, because my parents were also getting a divorce. I think I would have gone anyway, because I've always wanted to travel far and wide and get out there and see the world. But they were also getting a divorce, in the middle of a divorce, and there was no reason for me to go home. They were fighting all the time, and so
sure.
There's a bunch of things influenced.
Would you even spend holidays then in New York? I mean, with just your new friends, I'm guessing? Or?
Yeah, for Christmas and New Year's, instead of going home, I went to Spain. I looked at I'm here in New York, and I said, okay, the same price for a ticket to LA or to Europe. I'm going to Europe. So I had a friend from college who lived in Spain, and I spent a couple of weeks with him. I spent a couple of weeks traveling around. I got to tell you this, though. Traveling in Spain during Christmas can get pretty lonely because everything closes. It's so religious. Nothing's open. You know what I mean? I couldn't even get there's no bars open, no restaurants. It was very it was there were some lonely nights in certain, but it was a lot of fun times.
I would imagine. Did you hit the big cities, Barcelona, as they say, and Madrid and Andalusia?
Yeah. I spent most time. My friend lived in Barcelona, so that's where I spent the most time. And he was like, oh my God, he was a party animal. So we were literally, after the club closed at 4, we went to another club. Then that one closed at 6 or 7. Then we went to another club, and I was like, I'm done. Uncle, can I, and then I went to sleep in his car. I was like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I think they're still doing blow and stuff and raging. And I was like, I don't want any more blow. I'm done. And I went and took a nap in his car. I was like, can I just nap in your car? He's like, sure. So him and his friends were partying. And then I'm sleeping in the car, and I hear I look up, and there's a cop. And he's like, abre la puerta. Freaking the cops want to see my ID and everything. Sure. I'm like, no problem. I'm just sleeping here. My friends are at the club. The cops searched the car and found drugs in the car. Not my drugs, but I had a passport, so I wasn't in trouble. But anyway, they got in trouble.
Oh man. I fell in love with Sevilla. And they say, conocer Sevilla es conocer la maravilla. And I always thought if I moved to Europe, I would definitely make Seville a home base, or at least have a place there, because, and again, the both times that I've been there, back in the late 90s, 98, I think was that same year, I think, that I went to Saturday Night Live. Went there with a girl and her mom and dad. And then about 4 or 5 years, 6 years ago, maybe we went again. And this time we did Barcelona. And then back, I was like, I'll go to Madrid again. I love it. I love Seville. I love all of Andalusia, Ronda, Granada, all those wonderful places. And I think it was because growing up in the Chicagoland area, there was this tapas restaurant that, so I've always had this affinity for Spanish food. Well, I guess just food. What am I saying? For food in general. But the tapas are certainly a favorite. And there was this connection. I remember it's one of these images that will probably stay with me forever, which was walking along this plaza, maybe Plaza del Sol, and it's cobblestoned and you're walking and then you're like, what if one of my ancestors 500 years ago was walking this exact path and going like, I got to get out of here. There's this new world to go discover, or I don't know, but I mean, that's where our ancestors come from.
Totally. I think there's definitely something that, like, when I went to my ancestors come, like my second last name is Vidauri, right? That's a Basque last name. So we come from, we have Basque lineage, which is in the north part of Spain. So I went to San Sebastian and Pamplona, actually. We saw the running of the bulls. But when I was in San Sebastian, there's a beautiful beach on the north of Spain, San Sebastian. And I'm looking at the people, and they look like my uncles. You know what I mean? Like, it looks like my people. And it's just this weird thing when you get this sense of like, wow, this is where some of my blood comes from. You know, there is definitely a thing.
Do you own or do you have a Basque? Are they walking sticks that the Basque are known for? That they make these very ornate walking sticks, but maybe with a built-in knife as utility, and they're carved.
I've always wanted a walking stick with a knife. It's genetic. I don't know. Do they have them?
That's what your people, I think, are known for. So I was going to ask you about your last name because I've always known you as Patrick Perez, and then I see this addition, which to me sounded somewhat like Argentine. And maybe is that because people from the Basque region went to Argentina, or is that strictly
Argentina Basque? Yeah, and it also sounds Italian a little bit. So there's a lot of Italians in Argentina and a lot of Basque in Argentina. But I'll tell you about the last name. I'm glad you brought it up because I am Patrick Perez. Everyone knows me as Patrick Perez, and I decided to take my grandfather's last name and add it to my name because. For a couple of reasons. There's like, if you look up on IMDb, Patrick Perez, there's a gaffer, there's a cinematographer, there's like 5 other people with the same last name, right? The same exact name. And I wanted to distinguish myself and differentiate. But as a director, I also noticed that there was a hell of a lot of 3-name Latinos getting a lot of work.
Okay. All right. Okay.
You got Lin-Manuel Miranda, Alejandro Gonzalez Iñárritu. Anytime someone has 3 names, they just sound. And plus, Hollywood really seems to favor Mexicans from Mexico over Mexicans from the U.S. Like
100%.
Cuarón is getting all the work, and all these other people getting tons of work, and we have a really creative and talented people here. But I think that third last name adds a little bit of mystique, a little bit of charm. It differentiates me a little bit, but it also, pays, a little, is a little like FU to like really, do I really got to be like from somewhere else in order to make it here? I can't be a native LA Chicano boy made good. Patrick Perez can't make it, but Patrick Perez Vidauri is getting a lot of work lately.
I love it. Everyone, please, a round of applause for Patrick Perez Vidauri. So I hope you don't mind. I think I'm going to start going by Paul Vato Vidauri.
You already got the V. We both have V names. Well, everyone changes their name. Do people know your real name is Paul Rodriguez?
Not many people, but so thanks for letting everyone know now.
It's like there was one famous comic who's is not universally loved, but Paul Vato is a great name. I've always loved that name.
Thank you.
I think that having an artist name is a great idea. I think it's like, having an artist, we really have to represent something greater than ourselves, where we become kind of like the mythological, you have to mythologize yourself a little bit,
I think so. And you're right. Paul Vato lends itself because it's so ethnic almost, but yet it depends how you pronounce it. Because, the white guys that gave me the name Vato, then all of a sudden Latinos are like, oh, Paul Vato, órale, So there's all that, and then there's such balance to it. I think like Paul Vato, 4 and 4, and it's easier than Paul Rodriguez, but there's already Paul Rodriguez, the comedian, and then his son is even more famous, who's the
professional skateboarder. Yeah,
so
skater.
I want him to sponsor. I want to get.
You got to differentiate. Everybody changes their name, including, Tom Cruise and just it goes on and on and on. The people who've either changed their name or or added to their name. It's my grandfather's last name. Like I said, he's of Basque roots, but I traced my ancestry in Mexico. Like, actually went down there to the town that my grandfather immigrated from in 1918, 1917 is when he first crossed the border into the States. And so I went to the town that he left from and found distant relatives there, and they told me all kinds of stories, and was able to trace my ancestry in that town back to the first Spanish settlers that came in the 1500s.
Wow.
So yeah, my family's been in the continent of North America. They're coming originally from Spain and the Basque region.
That's such great history. When did your grandfather pass away? I'm assuming.
Oh, my dad was 17, and so he actually passed away before I was born,
Sure.
a long time ago, probably in the 60s.
And where were your parents born? I would imagine.
My dad was born in East LA. So his father and mother came, and they brought the two oldest were born in Mexico. Then they had 13 kids. So the next 11 were born here in the States.
Jesus.
And my dad was the youngest of all of them. So they all fought, like they were drafted into World War II, the Korean War, and Vietnam. My dad was too young for World War II and too old for Vietnam. So he kind of missed he didn't go to war, but most of my uncles were either career military or served at some point. So I have a long tradition of service to this country in my family.
Well,
And
I'm glad that it ended with you. You're like, I'm not going.
Hell no. Well, look, I was an intellectual. I was a nerd. I wasn't interested in war or fighting. I was interested in books and learning.
We're lovers. We're not fighters.
Yeah, we're lovers, Paul. Come on. Obviously.
Come on. Which kind of, you've probably heard the stories, and that it's my understanding that Latinos are the most highly decorated of Medal of Honor winners. I believe, and please, if I'm misspeaking, I hope somebody corrects me, but it's my understanding that as Latinos go, we have the most Medal of Honor inductees because, and I guess, I don't know, bravery, whatever, or maybe just because there were so many of us on the front line. I don't know, but I think a project like that would be amazing. Here I am, I'm pitching you ideas. Hey, how about doing this? How about doing that?
I have definitely been pitched that before.
Okay.
That is a great idea, and I wish that we would actually do that. Again, we're going to run into the problem of well, who's going to star in it, and we, if we're going to do a huge period piece. But there's a story. My collaborator and a longtime friend Esteban Zul.
Sure.
His grandfather is a Latino Medal of Honor winner. He personally saved his whole platoon or whatever. He rushed a pillbox and killed a bunch of Japanese and took a bullet to the couple bullets, but he killed 12 people, and it was nuts. The story of what he did reads like an unbelievable action movie. And there's many, many Latino Medal of Honor winners. There was a play done by Kiki Castillo, Enrique Castillo, who is a great actor who was on Weeds and many things in our film, in other words. And he did a play about Latino Medal of Honor winners going all the way back to World War I. I think he had Civil War, World War I, World War II. In every conflict, there's been Medal of Honor winners because, there's just something about, I don't know if it's the machismo or the bravery or look at Mexican boxers. They're the fiercest fighters there are. They'll sit in there and mix it up and get hit and keep on coming back. And I think that kind of ethic, especially, for me, in my family and in our tradition as Mexican Americans, we've seen it over and over, that there's something special about that fighting spirit. And, one of the things I used to say is my Uncle Johnny, he had a house in East LA, and he would collect stuff. And I used to go he was a hoarder. Nowadays we call them hoarders. Back then he was a collector, but he really.
I'm a collector. Exactly. Yeah.
I would go through his house, and it was like, it's a trip because, you know, my family, like my dad was the youngest of 13, so his oldest brother was like 20 years older than him. You know what I mean? So he was almost like his father. So he was more like my grandfather. My Uncle Johnny was an old man when I was a little kid. And Uncle Johnny collected stuff from the 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s. And his whole house was full of it. And so one day he brought out a Nazi helmet and a German Luger that he took off a dead Nazi in World War II. And when I've always said, like I'm really proud of my ancestors and my family who took the fight to the Nazis and didn't let fascism, take over Europe or the United States. And we'll be damned if we're going to do it now.
Greetings, my Vatos locals, and welcome to another episode of Vato Presents, where my guest is Patrick Perez Vidauri. Patrick is a director, filmmaker, producer, and I know him from the old Pocho Hour of Power days when I did a radio show in Los Angeles. If you're enjoying today's episode, please consider sponsoring us on Patreon, but also find our podcast, Vato Presents, on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and giving us a like, a share, and a follow. It would really help us.
Controversy brewing over the weekend, and I mentioned Saturday Night Live earlier. I even managed to use the word cathartic, we may have already said that's sad. But so Melissa Villaseñor, and so I want to maybe get your opinion on this, if I can find, I don't know where, but maybe a Latina who does comedy, I would love to talk to her as well, because I don't want people to think like, oh, well, you guys are guys and that's why you think this way. But for those that don't know, Melissa Villaseñor is a Latina on Saturday Night Live. It's my understanding, if you're on that show, you got to be constantly pitching yourself. So I feel like a lot of times it might be not an easy road for people that come from like stand-up. You're used to doing your stand-up. Now, if you come from the world of improv, you're used to the collaboration. You're used to using improv to write sketches. So I don't know whose fault it is that they haven't maybe utilized her as much as they should. I would be happy as shit if I was on that show and didn't have to do any work. I don't know how long you can milk that, but I would be fine with that personally.
I think she's done like 2 years or 3 years without hardly showing up. She's starting to bubble up now.
But maybe she's hitting her stride, and I don't want this to be taken away from her because people found it somewhat offensive. And is Hacienda Heights actually by Pico? Is it?
Hell yeah.
Pico Park? What's Pico Park?
Hell yeah. I don't know if I guess there's a real Pico Park. I've never been there. But yes, Pico Rivera is definitely by Hacienda Heights. Yes.
Okay.
Close.
Okay. Because I, reading some of the comments, there was a lady who's somewhat notable in the Latino maybe film industry, and maybe you can explain her better. And I don't know if we should name names or not, but she wasn't very happy with the sketch. I think she's probably the one leading the charge. And I can see the all sides. And I was like, you know what? I'm so cocky. What I wrote was, well, first, it irks me when people call them skits. It just shows you that they're not in comedy. So they shouldn't even have anything to say about comedy. If you're calling sketches skits, and I know sometimes in the UK they're called skits, but it's sketches, and I don't think anyone's going to respect your opinion if you call them skits. I'm just putting it out there. I could be wrong, and maybe I'm being elitist because I studied at the Second City and Improv Olympic, and that's what my background is. But we never called them skits to us. It's almost like you're just doing little bits, where sketches are something that's well thought out, and it's satire, and it doesn't punch down, things like that. So that already got me going. I'm like, no one's going to appreciate what you have to say if you don't even know the difference between a skit and a sketch. And then, giving notes on this. So, I'm pretty passionate about it. And of course, I believe in freedom of speech and to be able to say whatever we want to say, and then, maybe deal with the consequences. But I think as comedians, as satirists, we need to be given a little bit more leeway to we know where the line is, but then it's our job to either push those boundaries, but do it in a smart way. So I wrote, like, I'm going to go check it out, and then I'll come back and tell you guys how you should feel. I'm being a little snarky. I'm trying to be funny. So I did. I went and checked it out, and I laughed. So that's the way I gauge it. If I laugh, then it's funny and it's work. And I don't think it was, is it the world's greatest sketch? No. Yeah. But was it funny and entertaining and without being heavy-handed, and sometimes comedy and change, you need to like sugarcoat it a little bit. And so I enjoyed it. So I don't know how you feel about it, but I thought it was funny. I thought it was entertaining. It made me laugh because, and I'm like, God, I hope she never sees our old show, Touched by an Anglo, where our closing number was the Wetback Street Boys. I mean, she would shit her pants if if she saw that, or any of, Who Wants to Be an American Citizen, where the more questions you answered, the more citizenship, visas up to full citizenship. So I don't know. What's your take on it? And I don't know if we should explain the sketch, or maybe people should go watch it.
Let me I guess explain it first for anyone who didn't see it. Selena Gomez was one of the hosts of Saturday Night Live. I don't know if she was the main host. And Melissa Villaseñor, who's the only Latina cast member currently on the show, were playing basically a couple of cholas, gangbanger chicks, kind of gangish. They weren't, and it was really, to me, the comedy was built around their accent. And really the punchline, the catchphrase on it was, "That's sad. Oh, that's sad," right? And and if you read Villaseñor's take on it, she's saying that she overheard some girls talking in Target, and she thought that was a funny phrase, and she put it in her stand-up routine. And the writers took her stand-up routine and wrote it, and she helped to write it. And they developed this little sketch where they say, "That's sad," and they go, "Oh, that's good. Oh no, that's sad." So basically, that's how, like, as the sketch evolved, that was the punchline, if there was one. But it's not the greatest sketch ever written on Saturday Night Live, but it's not the worst either. I think what people took offense to, was that these two girls were portrayed as stupid. They didn't like. They said, "This, now we're going to talk to this woman. She's where she hangs out where all the books are at." And then she goes, "Yes, I'm a librarian," and so they objected to Latinas being portrayed as stupid, right? I think that was the crux of their objection, was that not only were they using a demeaning Latino stereotype of the gangbanger, but they were also portrayed as really stupid. Not everybody likes every joke, but I felt like the criticism, sure, everyone's entitled to your opinion. You don't like the sketch, fine. But every single piece that a Latino makes is held up to such a high standard that I'm exhausted with the with the self-criticism that Latinos heap upon every attempt to portray ourselves in the media. We saw this happen when In the Heights came out. I went to see it in theaters, and it was gorgeous, beautiful, a celebration of Latinidad. And there was every shade and every race and every group. There were Dominicans and Mexicans and Colombians and Puerto Ricans. Everybody was there represented. And so when the criticism started coming out from the Latino community that there weren't enough Afro-Latinos, I was flabbergasted. One of the main characters in the whole movie is an Afro-Latino. Two of them. Two of the main characters in the story were Afro-Latinos. Plus, they were well represented. And they were saying, well, the Afro-Latinos they picked, they weren't dark-skinned enough. Like, they were too light-skinned. I'm like, wow, we're really splitting hairs now. Like, nobody could do it. Not even Lin-Manuel Miranda can do it right. I really became kind of weary. So I'm starting to, like, I'm definitely a little bit, I thought the sketch was innocent and sweet. And it was a sketch that was poking fun at the accent. And I want to say this, that I think that the Chicano accent is not used enough in movies. It has never been really seen and featured in such a way. In Blood In, Blood Out, it has, or like Bound by Honor and kind of the gang films. But like, if you go to My Barbecue of My Family, it's, George Lopez in his show used it a little, only he did, but not the rest. But if you go to the barbecue in My Family, they have a really, really unique accent. It's just as unique as an Italian, a New Jersey accent, or a Jewish accent in New York, or a Southern accent. It's a very specific accent. And it's like, "Mijo, oh, how are you doing, mijo? You're looking really good. Oh, wow, look how tall you are." You know, like
That's it.
that's how they talk, you know, and I love them. And I love that accent, and I wish it was used more. So I was kind of happy that the joke on that was the accent, you know. So I think the people who, because the catch line was, "Oh, that's sad,"
Oh,
you
that's
know,
sad.
that's sad.
But I've
So
heard
I
it.
think the people missed the joke.
I think so because you know what they did a similar sketch about the 405, and I forgot what that sketch was called, but it was the whatever. But there were all these white people. Well, they were all blonde. Even Keenan, who's black, had blonde hair, and it was I forget what they were called, but they had that California accent, which I didn't know it really existed until I met my ex-wife, and she would say, do you, what time are we going? I'm like, 6. She goes, sex. I'm like, what, sex? Wait, sex? 6 o'clock. Where I need a pen. You need a pen. Okay. No, a pen. I gotta write something. You know, and you're like, what the hell are these people? And then sometimes she would say, what's up, fool? Like, oh, that's sad. And this is a white girl, you know. So it's a very California. It's there. It exists. And I agree. I agree with what you're saying, but no one, I think, complained. And I should do more research and remember what that sketch was called about the people from the Californians. I think it was called the
Yeah, the
Californians.
California. It was a complete soap opera, and they're like, everything was about the freeways, right? It was like, I gotta take the 101 to the 405 to the 710.
And that's exactly, yeah. And I don't think anyone complained about that. Like, oh my God, you're making fun of this California, of this white people doing this accent, you know. So I agree with you. I think, you know, the subject was that accent. And I randomly found, just earlier today, I found Melissa's podcast, and it's a one-person podcast. And on this episode, this was back in January, she was talking about it already, when Betty White died. And that's what happened. She was at Target, Betty White had died, and then people started talking about it because, you know, it comes up on your phone. And then so there was this Latina girl, and she goes, "Oh no, Betty White died. That's sad." So that's where it comes from. You know, it came from this, and that's how we develop characters. I think. I just also saw Mike Myers, the comedian, not from not from the horror flicks. Mike Myers, he was talking about how to develop a character, and sometimes that's all what it takes. It's, you know, one little word, and you're like, that's a character right there. You know, so I mean, give her,
Right. I saw that.
yeah, give her.
I saw that interview.
She got.
You know what? I think that they did it. They did it right. And you know, the problem is, and here's what I diagnose it, is that we don't have enough content. So every single piece of content is supposed to redeem all Latinos throughout all time. It's supposed to represent us in the highest light because we're up on stage so few times that when we are up on stage, we're supposed to represent the best of the best at all times, you know? But that doesn't allow for bad comedy or trying stuff out and failing. And, you know, it's like you can't judge everyone into silence, you know, or criticize them into, into obscurity. I think people have to be allowed to like have a voice. And if you don't like it, great. Some people thought it was funny. Some people didn't. And they thought it was insulting.
And we have to be allowed to fail, I think, is maybe kind of what you're saying, because you're 100% right. You know, that's the same with the films. Like in the Heights, every single film is held to such a high standard because we don't get a chance to do it. So when we do it, we're going to be criticized. So it better be great or perfect. And not everyone's going to like it. Not everyone's going to love it. You know, so you're 100% right there, Patrick. It's like there's such few content that it's just held to this standard.
It's supposed to be like representing all Latinos in the best light possible and answer for all the past neglect in this one, you know, thing. And it's like, it's not going to happen. And then there's this new, this is not, I'm definitely, you know, I know your politics and mine, and we don't always see eye to eye, but we have a conversation and we have our opinions. And I just, don't like when, if you're not outraged, then you're wrong. You know, it's like, I'm not outraged, and it's okay. You're fine. You want to be outraged? Go for it, but I'm glad they did that sketch. I hope they do 20 more. And I hope that the people who were offended by this like some of the stuff. But, we just can't tear people down before we even had a chance to rise,
That's sad. It's in my head now. I mean, I'm going to try to use it every time that I can. And I wish Melissa the best of luck, and I hope I hope that this is the beginning of something great with whether it's that character or just more stuff, because she's very talented. Her impressions are amazing.
Let me say this too, that I think that it's another thing that people didn't notice, especially coming from the West Coast. You're right, they did the Californians and they did this. But since it's a New York show and most of the writers are East Coast writers and most of the performers are not from the West Coast, it really doesn't have, I don't think the East Coast is aware or familiar with our accents, our kind of racial makeup, the way we interact, the way we talk. The fact that they did a comedy about Pico Rivera making fun of a very specific colloquial local accent, that's awesome. I'm glad that West Coast was represented. There's plenty of pizza shop in at the taxi, or at a club, but it's all New York stuff. This is West Coast, and that voice. And Selena Gomez, who's a Texas Latina, got to use our Mexican American accent on the national stage, which a little of exposure. Like I say, they got to do more.
Well, look at Wayne's World. I mean, that was based in my hometown, Aurora, Illinois. And the reason was because the writers were from Naperville, which is the wealthy town next door. I mean, now it's all kind of almost become one, I think. But I haven't been back for a long time, so I probably shouldn't speak on it. But, and they were literally going let's make fun of Aurora. They were kind of shitting on us by putting Wayne's World, these kind of dumb, party kids, in Aurora, Illinois. And so it's but we were like, oh my God, our hometown got a mention, So, I mean, I'm going to put Pico Rivera and Pico Park, if it exists, on the map.
I think that I saw a bunch of comments to that regard. They were like, yeah, Pico Rivera, we made the cut,
Yeah, exactly. They were like, yeah, thank you. Make fun of us all you want. And we make fun of ourselves all the time, I think, as Latinos.
Shut up. Stupid.
You've got it down good, man. You've got it. And it's not just California. It's, the Texas family, even, where my mom's from, El Valle, they call it, McAllen.
Really? Yeah, McAllen, Brownsville.
Yeah. Harlingen, yeah.
Harlingen, yeah. That's where my college roommate was from. That's funny because
really?
They have a Chicano accent mixed with a little bit of a Texas twang. It's very interesting accent.
What does that sound like? God,
They say y'all, and they kind of say, so it's like y'all see them? That's stupid.
That's stupid.
That's sad, y'all. That's sad, y'all.
That's rich. That's good.
Yeah,
I'm from Chicago, where we don't got an accent, so
Oh yeah, sure. You don't got no accent. Yeah, yeah. You guys sound like you got the Polish accent mixed with the Chicano accent.
That's it.
I love it. The richness and all that is brings color, and it's part of our legacy of immigration and the diversity of the people who come here. I love it.
I miss Chicago, and I miss that. And I don't know if segregation is the right word, but there's distinct neighborhoods where you can go to the Polish neighborhood, you can go to the Little Italy, you can go but then it's people from all walks of life live there, but then you get the food that's kind of specific to wherever those people are from. At least that's the way it used to be when I was there. Again, I probably shouldn't.
Pilsen's the Mexican area, right? I've never even been there, but isn't it called Pilsen?
Yeah, Pilsen, which used to be a Czech, like the Pilsen beer, used to be, I believe, a Czech neighborhood, and now, of course, it's all Latino, and that's where we first did our show. I think that's where we first tried it, and we found great success in Pilsen. So shout out to Pilsen. It's a great Latino enclave. When Francisco Hernandez came one time to Chicago, he was just so surprised that he goes, there are so many Mexicans here. I'm like, yeah. I go, we're like the third, I don't know, fourth largest, I guess after LA, Chicago, there's Mexico City, then probably LA, then maybe Chicago of Mexican Americans. I'm like, yeah, and it's it's almost half Mexican American, half Puerto Rican, and that's Chicago. There's this rich Latino culture there as well. I think you would love it. It's like New York light. It's like a lighter version of New York, if that makes sense.
There's a huge audience of kids of Mexican immigrants who are going to grow up to be bicultural just like we are. And they're going to have the same experience that we did of living in both worlds and in two languages. And so I think that us as creators, it's important for us to keep putting our voice out there because we're really causing like a resonance with the next generation. The one out of every, what is it, like something like 3 out of 4 Latinos are like under the age of 18. Like Latinos are the youngest demographic and the fastest growing. So it's really going to be a big Pocho, Chicano, a Mexican American future and Latino American future. And so I think that us putting our record down, putting our experiences down for the record, whether it be books, plays, comedy, movies, art, paintings, any kind of art, it's important for us to state for the record, we are here, we are American, just as Americans as anybody else, and our experience is a unique one. And get our voice out there because there's going to be a lot of people coming behind us who are going to be saying like, wow, I see myself in that,
Yeah, everybody. Thank you. Guys, I want to thank everyone that's been with us today. Thanks for popping in. And of course, please share the replay and then look for it. And if you guys could do me a favor, and if you go where the fortune cookie is, I've put Patrick's websites there. There's his IMDb. There is also directly to his website. You can also follow me at paulvato.com. But if you guys could do me a huge favor and look for Paul Vato Presents, the podcast, if you go to paulvato.com, there should be links right there, but specifically on iTunes or Apple Podcasts, I should say, and Spotify. And if you could give it a follow, if it's in your heart to give a review, if it's good, if not, don't say anything, and rate it, I would be eternally grateful because that's how the podcast picks up steam. And I think I've already had some wonderful guests, and I have some other great guests. I think I'm going to do Lalo tomorrow. So if you want to pop in, I don't know if you guys chat or not, but I think maybe around 4 or 5 p.m. tomorrow will be Lalo Alcaraz, who's the creator of La Cucaracha. But Patrick, man, I don't know how you're doing on time because we could Joe Rogan this and go all night, but or I'd love for you to come back whenever you're ready to promote something else.
Sure, I'd love to be back. If you want to keep it going, you tell me. I'd love to increase my followers as well. Like if you guys want to follow me on Instagram, check out at Pat Perez World, and then on Twitter, I'm Pocho Patrick. So check me out on Twitter also. I don't really post that much. I just kind of creep and follow and read the news, but I post a lot on Instagram. And yeah, we're having a bunch of movies coming out. I have one that just got sold. I have another one, the one I did in New York, that still hasn't got a distributor yet. So there's going to be a lot of, and there's some film festivals coming up. So I'd love to get an audience. I'd love you guys to check out my film. In other words, on HBO Max, leave a good review, give us some stars. We're doing okay on reviews, but it could, I'd love to get more thumbs up and make it even better. But yeah, we're here to represent, inclusivity and diversity and authentic voices. And I'm going to keep doing it as long as I got breath in me. So
that's wonderful. You're such an inspiration and so motivational. And lately, I also had a young lady, Natalia Michelle, who is only 20, but is killing it on social media, and her Instagram and TikTok, and has a company that helps other people with their socials. Let me ask you this as a filmmaker and somebody who does casting as well and is very intimately involved with all that process. Has that become more important, social media? I know that obviously you want to get more followers and things like that. But if there are two actors that are equally qualified, do you start looking at their social media and go, well, this one has 1 million followers?
I think that producers do. Like, I do produce, but I don't. I try to think like I as a director want to cast the person that I think is the most right for the part. If there were two, like I've never come across a moment where there was two equal people and I had a really hard time deciding. Usually, it's like somebody is either right for the part or they're not, and it's it sucks. As an actor, it's difficult, but usually you just somebody works. But yes, like for casting directors and others, it does make a difference. It definitely does make a difference. If you have 11 million or 5 or 4 million followers, that makes a big difference to people, especially because they're thinking the same as they're thinking when it comes time to distribution, can these convert into sales? Can your viewers then, you could advertise hey, I'm in this film, and then your followers will become your viewers, So yes, it makes a big difference to casting directors and producers. And then in television, I know that especially I worked in reality television for a long time, and influencers are big in that. They would bring influencers into game shows and reality shows and cooking shows and all kinds of stuff because they think that they're going to bring an audience with them. So yeah, it's important. That social media thing is important. Not that I've worked on it at all, but it's important.
Yeah. No, it is. So yeah, please, like Patrick asked, please give him a follow, give me a follow, and all that good stuff. I'm doing all right, but I think the shift came when I started thinking about social media as a content creator and not as a consumer. So Patrick, I think we have to almost, instead of consuming, is start thinking about creating, and whether you do behind the scenes stuff of your next movie or clips of your movies and put them out there on TikTok. It's not, it's now surpassed Google, where people go to search things, believe it or not, because, it's maybe because of China or wherever, it's based in, but you can go to TikTok and, it's a 1 minute video and maybe it'll teach you what you need to learn, as opposed to Googling something and, I'm going to have to watch a 10-minute video. No, give it to me right now, real quick. So it's not just about kids dancing. If that's, I know some people think that, but TikTok is one of the places to be. So same thing. I'm working on that. It really hit home when my business was closed, two bricks and mortar stores in Vegas and a casino. The whole casino's closed. There's no business. So that's when I was like, wow, I really should have been paying more attention to social media, because then you can reach out to all those people and you still have your customers. But so I don't take that for what it's worth, but it's important.
No, this is great. Thanks for inviting me on the show. We both we're on the radio, on terrestrial radio, with Lalo Alcaraz, your guest for tomorrow, on the Pocho Hour of Power. I think your voice is still on the intro.
I think so. Well, I had Jeffrey Keller on as well, and I think we covered that. I think he said that they might have another theme song, but for years, 15 years, I think I was like, let's do this or whatever. We had this whole sketch that we did, and it was such a pleasure. That's really how we got to know each other, right? I mean, or how did we first meet?
I guess. I mean, we met before that, just kind of socially, but yeah, we were on that radio show every week for many years, and then I finally left when I started getting jobs, and I raised a family. I have 3 kids now, and my oldest is 14. So there came a point where I had to be at work. I couldn't be on the radio at 3 p.m. on a Friday, 4 p.m. on a Friday.
Yeah, of course, because it wasn't.
And I remember Alan Minsky, the producer, came in and it was like, "You guys should really do this new thing called podcast. It's going to be big." And like we were like, "Yeah," and we didn't do the podcast. Like maybe we should talk to Lalo about it tomorrow.
I will. I think we need a Pocho podcast, because I kind of tried, and I did a few episodes, but it was just so time consuming because I would literally, it was like this. It was a video podcast. I would take the audio and then I would throw images into it, and I still have them somewhere because I did. Were you there when the Blasters did a show? The band, the Blasters.
Yeah.
That episode. I have a few episodes. I'll have to dig them up, see if I can find them.
Cool, man. Well, let's do this again.
Patrick, I would love to, and hopefully next time your better half might be able to pop in and say hello. If you want to do a shout out to the beautiful Christina Nava, who I think I might still owe an apology. I remember when she wrote her show called Rocks on My Salsa, and I think I accidentally said, maybe I didn't accident, but I said something about salsa on my rocks. So I hope she didn't take it.
I don't think so. Yeah, my wife is writer Christina Nava. She wrote this movie and produced it, and we've been collaborating for years. And so we're kind of a husband and wife team making films. And we're working on some new stuff. And so, yeah, well, let's have her on next time.
I would love that. And even if it's just her, maybe even better. We'll have a better show.
Yeah, most likely. Yeah, it's true.
I think I'm going to try to start doing the Punch Hour of Power again, because now I think it's call-in when they're not doing a fundraiser. It is public radio, folks, so be ready to be hit up for money all the time. But I loved doing that show with you, Patrick, and I thought we each brought a little bit of a unique voice, from different parts of the country, and I love it and I miss it. And you forget how much power there is now, because it was terrestrial radio, but all over LA. I mean, we have such a great following on that show. So Patrick, it's been such a pleasure to reconnect, and I hope that we get to work together soon, or anytime, because I love your work. And if you look behind me, look, I could play a Mexican wrestler. You don't even have to see my face, whatever,
Oh, that's you? I have no idea. Well, thanks, Paul. It's been a real pleasure, and happy that we're both still in the media, and and we're going to keep on doing our thing. So let's keep talking about it, making some noise.
You got it, my friend. I think tomorrow it's this overnight success will come to us probably literally tomorrow or the next day. So we just have a few more days to go, and we're there.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Holding up the bottle. Look a little closer, cigar and Moscato. An actor in improv coming from Chicago. Alto, make way for Vato.